Hello and welcome to our live talk. We have been looking forward to this. I have definitely, for sure. And we prepared for today. There's some basic information I would like to tell the audience about. First of all, really appreciate, I think that more than 70 has tuned into this show. That's not too bad, actually. And I can see all of our technicians around us are up and in gear, so that's good. Thank you for that. So today I have a couple of guests with me. Before I introduce you guys, I want to let you guys know that if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. It should be fairly easy, and we will pick them up at the end of the show and make sure that we will reply them if we can, I guess. I hope we can.
Fingers crossed.
We will do our best.
All right. If you have any technical problems, of course, reach out either on our chat if you have any that we can help you with. Let's get started. First of all, Torben.
Yes.
Who are you? Where are you from? Why should we listen to you?
Who am I? The big question.
The big question. Who am you?
I'm head of marketing at Dali Loudspeakers, a global manufacturer of hi-fi loudspeakers. It's been around for almost 40 years. My background is in marketing for the past many years. I've been working at Dali for a little over a year now, heading up their marketing department, D2C, and user journeys, user experiences, and pretty much involved in everything that has to do with that. Prior to that, I was in the furniture industry for a brief period and spent a number of years at Lego as a digital strategist.
All right.
And on the agency side before that. So I've been working with user experiences, user journeys, retail, and everything in between for a long time.
You've been around.
Been around.
That's why we should listen to you, sounds like. All right, sounds good. And as well, Dion.
Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for saying the name like that. We discussed how to pronounce it. But anyways, yes, I'm Dion. Thank you for having us, or at least me.
Both of you. It's a pleasure, really.
I started my journey actually in retail. So I'm kind of born in retail, if you can say that. So I never kind of left it. But from being in retail, I figured out that there was something different I had to touch, and that was the experience. At that time, we didn't know that experience was such a big thing today. So I've worked with advertising and experiences the last 20 years. Started doing a lot of retail again for 3 or 4 years ago. And my last two success, I guess, will be the Toy Store BR and the whole new experience you get when you get in there. Not focusing on selling toys, but selling play.
Yeah.
And secondly is the last thing is in the local center of Aarhus, which is the new and world's first kids store sitting on Søndergade in Aarhus.
With Hummel, I think.
With Hummel, yes, with the brand Hummel. So
Okay.
go and experience those two things, and then you pretty much know.
I have kids. My kids are spending time in some of the stores that I know that you have been building.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting to look at the BR case, which in Denmark it's quite famous toy chain, but for the rest of the world, I think there's similar cases that I think would be interesting, because everybody was screaming for digital experiences.
Yes.
And what actually happened is a more experience in the retail.
Yes.
I guess, physically in the
Well,
shop.
there's definitely a pain when it comes to when kids stop playing and start gaming, or then you can discuss if that's playing or not. But it's, the age is just getting lower and lower and lower when you stop playing, and that's not good for your education or your brain and all that stuff. So there's a lot of things into that. So it's been a challenge to do that, but it's also very exciting, and it's a huge success at the moment. So you should go and experience.
Definitely. And I think that will take us to one of the first things that we are going to talk about, future of retail. And I think that experience, it sounds like that's just the beginning of the journey. Mm-hmm. If we are to define customer experience or retail or the topics we are talking about today, could you kind of lay it out on us? What do you think is a great experience, and what does the future of retail look like? What are we talking about today?
Well, I think it's a big question, because what is retail? Today, it's increasingly difficult to disconnect the channels from each other, the touch points from each other. It's a popular buzzword is omni-channel, but what is omni-channel? Because it's not just a question of being on each channel, but how do you make that connected omni-channel experience? So retail today is just as much about digital channels. It's just as much about digital experiences as it is about analog and physical experiences. So I think the future of retail is how do you combine these in a holistic and an immersive way, in a natural way that gives you the consumer or the customer a seamless experience of both brand and product that stands out enough to the extent that they want to come back.
And it's definitely a challenge. I think I read that more than 70% of people are actually, before buying, they're actually making their decision online.
Yep.
And then going into retail. Sometimes they'll just buy online, obviously. Other times they'll just start their journey digitally and then move into the retail.
It is, and I think that's the big challenge, because the user journey used to be very linear, or the purchasing path in the past used to be very linear. We go out with some mass communication, and then they go here, and then they go there, moving through those different phases of the buyer journey. Today, you don't know where it starts. The first awareness impulse you get maybe in physical retail, it may be online, it may be on marketplaces, it may be from friends. Where are you? So when you develop your content, your marketing strategy, your communication, you have to take that into account in terms of same but different. At any given point, what you do needs to be tailored towards various stages of the buyer journey, and I think that's a big challenge.
Yeah. And what does if that buyer journey, if that end up in some sort of experience in a physical store, like we're here today at Hi-Fi Klubben, where I know your product is present as well. What is a good experience? Maybe you can kind of, what are we aiming at? What's the goal here?
But I don't think you can say it ends up here or ends up there. I think that you have to see it as a journey, and that journey is not the same all the way, always. It's so different from what mindset you're in when you want to buy. Did you just get your salary, or are you just in a good mood because you had a wonderful night last night?
Yeah.
Are you about to buy now because I'm worth it? So I think what we have to do is, first of all, we have to figure out all our senses, right? And we know those 5 of them, and it haven't changed. It has not changed at all. It's been like this.
It's still the same.
I mean, since we ever know human being, right? You have had senses. There's a 6th one sense you have to be aware of, and it's the socializing sense. We need socializing, and that's a human thing, right? We need to come back to handshake or hug and all that. That's what makes us human. And at the moment we can't get that. So what are we doing and focusing a lot on is socializing. So the socializing thing is the thing we really have to focus on, but also the other senses, because you can fulfill yourself with all those senses online. You have to go and either see them or hear them or touch them or feel them when you go into the store, right?
Yep.
Or at least if to a vending machine or wherever you're going to get that experience. So instead of seeing and talking about all the time about the buzzword, what was that? I'm trying to forget that word. Omnichannel.
Omnichannel.
I'm trying to forget that because we have to focus on saying retail.
Yeah.
What is retail? Retail is not just the physical; it's also the online. It can be all. I mean, it's all the touch points where you can buy it, or at least you can experience it. And experiences doesn't have to be a physical. It can also be an online experience you can get. So if you narrow it down to what is a good experience, well, from my point of view, it is that it has to be at least surprising. You have to be unique. You have to have some kind of personalization in it, or being able to customize it. And then you have to get some kind of involved into that experience. And when you have done all those 4 things, you really should have the feeling of want to try it again and again, a kind of a repeatedly thing. You want to try it again and again and again. So that's a good experience. If you can fulfill these 5, I think you're really, really safe on this one.
All right, but that sounds easy.
It's so easy. Just have to figure out either what's the pain or what's the gain, because it doesn't always have to. You don't always have to find a pain in the journey. You could also find, okay, where can I gain it in the journey? Because we have the money now. We don't need any more things. We have everything we need, pretty much, right? So this is about gaining and figure out, am I worth something? I mean, can I get even a better speaker? Can I get even a better experience with having that speaker? It's not that I have sound, I have the music, right? But can I get an even better experience?
Yeah.
Am I worth it? And you know, and worth it is not about showing off. It's about which Chanel came out and said, it's not about you can show you're using Chanel. It's about when you're coming home, you've worked all day, you have had a busy day, blah blah blah. You put on that night cream, right? Then you're like, yes, I'm worth it. Yes, and that's the feeling we need to give.
All right. So
but it's actually interesting because those are very good points. But it starts with, you know, your first question here is, so who are you? You know, in order to answer those 5 for a business, you know, they have to really look outside in and inside out, look at themselves and say, who are we? What's our reason for being? What is our brand about?
Do you think, you mentioned organization, do you think in order to achieve those, I mean, it's fairly easy to say, okay, you just need to use your 5 senses. How would you go from a company like yours, building speakers? What's your organization like? Do you need stakeholder management? Do you need to make sure that this is not just a marketing thing that needs to be pulled out? I'm almost answering that question myself.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're just here for ornament.
So that's it for me. No.
No, it is. I mean, it's, you know, it increasingly involves the entire organization and all stakeholders, because it's not just about your internal organization, but it's also about the external influencers, the external stakeholders, because you can sit there and come up with a great idea, an awesome retail experience that you know is so unique, but if no retailer is going to take it into their store because it takes up too much space, or it's too expensive, or whatever it may be, what's the worth? So from an organizational level, it's really important that you have that top level buy-in, you have C-level buy-in, and it filters down that this is a strategic priority for the company.
Okay.
And making sure that you have cross-functional teams, you have a sense of purpose, that this is something we're all in together to achieve this. Because you don't want to work in silos, because it won't happen then. It goes from R&D and product development, it goes to marketing, it goes to sales, it goes to support, it goes to logistics. Every step, every part of a company is involved in that experience. Because the experience doesn't stop once you purchase the product.
No, true.
It just starts, you know, and what happens afterwards? If we look at consumer lifetime value, you want to retain that customer a long time. You want to make sure that they keep buying your brand throughout their entire lives. How do you ensure that? Well, you don't ensure it if you stop the communication and you stop the strategy at once they've bought the product.
And I have to give you so much right on this one. There's one thing that's very important here. It's about, yes, you start telling something about your product, right? And then you start doing something for your audience about your products. But if you're not being it, I mean, and that's about being it in the whole organization, well, your guest or your the guys who's buying your products, they will figure out pretty fast, because it's so transparent today, right? So they will, if you're not being what you're telling and what you're doing, then you're out of the game.
Definitely.
Then you can go to.
And
my question before was, so in order for, you said product management actually have to know what goes on in the store as well, because they need to understand that part of the experience, and that really needs, you know, buy-in from all of the organization. Is that how I should hear that?
Definitely, because we, in an organization, you interact with different people from your customer side. So if, you know, logistics talks to some people, sales talks to other people, marketing talk to other people, and so forth. So you get different impulses, you get different input. And bringing all that together, you have to really have those cross-functional teams that are able to share those experiences, but also together help define what are our challenges, what is it we actually want to achieve, and how do we tie that together across the entire experience. So it's also about giving the mandate to the people who are actually involved in this. You can't have somebody sitting on top making all the decisions, because you're not going to be agile enough. You're not going to be able to move enough around. And very seldomly is all the information, all the know-how, all the expertise gathered in one person. So you really have to make sure that you embrace the differences in an organization and the experiences that an organization has with its customers in order to get the full benefit.
All right.
And then give those people the mandate to actually make decisions about what is the right direction to go.
Makes sense. And it sounds like if we, and that is what we're looking into already, the future of retail, it sounds like a big task actually, because it's more than just a marketing experience. It's actually not looking at silos. I think actually looking more as a combined unit, or is that some of the no-goes, silos, or?
Well, if you put this out easy, right? If you do a launch in your store and you don't have anybody to help you tell about it, right? Nobody's shown up. So what's the worth of it?
Yeah.
And if you're online, you don't have anything to say, nobody's listening. So if you could do a launch that you can tell about, and if you even could have, we're buying influencers, ambassadors, and all that stuff. It's been here all around all the time, And who's the best ambassadors? I guess it's the people who's working within the brand.
Yeah.
If you can have them talk about you having a launch or you're doing this and that, I mean, you could at least start there. So it sounds simple, right? But sometimes the simple things are the furthest away. You have to go and find them again and start doing them and start working within them. So I think instead of figuring out and coming up with a lot of buzzwords or a lot of ways you can go, cut it down and go into the simple part and look at it. If you go to physical retail, what is it all about?
Yeah.
Well, I think we have to go back to basic, and I think we definitely have to focus on the people working on the floor. That
in the shops, physically.
In the physical shops, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yes, they definitely just have to be present. That's the first thing, right? So you have to feel welcoming. That you're coming into the store, you're feeling welcome. So you have to invest in those people, those guys or girls, whoever's working or whatever you are today. You are the most important. You're the most important part of the whole experience when you get into the store.
You're the important touch point at that precise moment.
Exactly. So
I was about to say fuck, but I won't. But who cares about digital when you're physically in the store? You need to have that presence where you've been seen.
Yes.
That's
and
how
you can see from analytics that it's not that people are coming in and they start surfing on a screen when they get into a physical store. They want to be socializing. What I talked about before. That's where you have those senses you have to work within and give them all of it and give them the socializing because that's what they actually want.
When they come to the store, they expect the expertise. They can do all the research on their own online and in various other places. But when they go to the store, they expect the salesperson to be able to answer the questions they couldn't find. They expect the person to answer those intangible things. What's the best for me? Well, let's talk about who you are. And what do you need, and why? What kind of pains are you trying to solve? How do you live with this product on a day-to-day basis? So I think it's looking again. We talk about organization because it's also looking at who are the people representing your brand in the physical retail space. I think we've all, and this is not to diss on student workers, but a lot of times when you go into a retail store, and you're met with a person who's not knowledgeable, who isn't very service-minded necessarily, and this is not to say that all students are this, but it's not their career. And a lot of times you sense that, you can feel that, and you end up, well, they have to ask somebody else, or they are not quite sure about it. And you get an experience that's less than perfect.
So you need really educated staff.
You need to educate those people who actually sell your product, who are there at the moment of truth, where they're face-to-face with the consumer.
That's quite expensive.
Depends on how you do it. I mean, that's something you can do. I think what the past 6 months have shown us, it's something you can do digitally. Of course, it's difficult to have face-to-face training globally. If you're a global organization with thousands of retailers, that's going to be difficult. But it's something you can do in various ways. Is it about having training videos? Is it about having webinars? Is it about meeting face-to-face and training people? Because if you get them to become advocates for you, if the salespeople on the floor actually become brand advocates, you're going to do much better. And they will become brand advocates if they feel that you take an active interest in them, if they feel like you're embracing them and including them and helping them evolve as salespeople. Because they will become fans of your product. It's going to be the products that they go to when they need to recommend something in the physical space.
So that,
but also a quick answer to, or maybe it's not quick, but an answer to your, is it expensive?
Yeah.
Well, if you're sitting down and focusing on just making that student the best of the best, and you're not having a 360 focusing here my big sister, she is one of the best salesperson I ever know or seen or heard about. But I'm seeing her going a little bit further down and down and down. And why is that? Because she can't deliver her products. I mean, she's selling, but she can't deliver on time. So, everything have to fit here. If you're not doing the right branding, if you don't have your logistic in fit, if you can't turn on the light in the store and it's just dark, you can have such a good person, right? So you have to make it all fit.
All right. So staff and the salesperson, you could say, is just part of it, unless you have the ecosystem, right?
Exactly.
That's not important either.
No. So there's a lot of things to retail.
Okay.
It has to fit, and even if you can find it online. Now it's a hygiene factor that you actually just get it online. You cannot be out of stock, right? But in the store, it's okay to kind of be out of stock. But you don't have to say that, because it's not a matter of if you're out of stock. It's a matter of when can you deliver? What time can you do? Can you deliver now? Can I take it with me now? And still 70% want to have it right away when they're in the stores. But there can also be that you want to have delivered at home. We can have it in 2 hours for you. Might be sitting 200 kilometers away. You can have it on Monday. You can have it on Sunday. You can even have it installed in 1 week. So it's not a matter of if you're in stock or out of stock. It's a matter of when can you deliver.
Okay, and that sounds like we're talking into some of the, might not be the pain for a consumer, but it's some of the concerns that a consumer might have. Delivery. Do you know what the product is about? Does it fit for this? Mm-hmm. Can it do this and that? So that's. But it sounds like training is important of the staff.
It sure is.
And the interesting thing here is that I think that more shops that I go into, I see less and less educated people in there in that specific shops, because you start to having these multiple shops in shops.
Yeah, and it's interesting, because a lot of times, you cry wolf, Amazon is coming, marketplaces are coming, and they beat us on price. But what we see on D2C channels is actually that a lot of consumers are not
D2C channel?
Direct to consumer.
Got it.
So a lot of consumers are actually not going to go for the cheapest product. They're going to go for the seller, the vendor, who they trust more.
Okay.
So you as a brand actually have an opportunity to take over that digital space, because you are more trusted inherently than Joe's whatever shop down the street, or in Germany or in France that sells cross-border that they've never heard about. So it's about having that trust and gaining that trust from the consumer. It's not only about price. Of course, if the price difference is too high, yes, it's going to be hard to. But if you more or less have the same price, if there's not a big difference, a lot of times you actually have the advantage in digital channels, being the brand.
And that sounds like retail in itself is not dead at all. There's definitely, Amazon might be coming. It is definitely something that people or retail worry about, but it's something that we need to embrace somehow.
You have to embrace it, and you have to include it in your strategy. So your retail strategy actually has to have a digital part that's non-retail, so to speak. Yeah. Because retail, what is that? It's just a way of getting in contact with your consumer and making the sale. It's a physical space where you do that, but the space doesn't have to be physical. So your retail is just as much Amazon or Lazada or Tmall in China or whatever.
Yes.
It can be anywhere. So it's really about how do I make that sale regardless of where that transaction takes place.
Yeah. So there's a digital experience or there's a physical experience depending on when as we start talking about when the user journey you are.
Depending on where they are, yeah.
And it's different games, but it's still it's completely connected together, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It is.
And there's just a limit when it comes to digital, right? You have you can see and you can hear, and that's pretty much it, right? And if you want to remember the experience you're getting, like you have statistics saying that if you experience the product, you remember 80%. So it's about experiences with all your senses.
All right.
And even if you bring in the socializing, you almost up to 90. You can see that I'm talking a lot about socializing, because that's a big topic at the moment, right? Because you have Corona. How much can you socialize and how much can you do about it? But there's still a lot of things to do. So I think if you say retail is dead, yes, if you keep continuing doing what you're doing, you're dead.
Yeah.
Not now, maybe in a couple of months or a year. So if you start looking at retail as a media, and if you're even in the top of the organization, start focusing on having retail, not having online, fighting the physical, having sales wholesalers fighting it, but kind of start fighting together and lifting each other. I think, well, because the consumers out there are not wishing for that fight up there. They want the best of the best.
Yeah, and they don't care.
They don't care. No, not at all. And we're so afraid of having a launch in our flagship store the day before a wholesaler. But come on, I mean, the day before, maybe you can even give people a better experience. And if you start seeing your own retail as a media, right, where you're like, I'm launching it here, but you're buying it, as I said before, when you feel for it. And you could buy it when you're sitting at home, you had a good Wednesday, right? Or you had a good Tuesday, or, oh, just got the salary, you know, now I can buy it, but I don't have the time to go to the store. But I had the experience in the store, now I want to buy it online. So we have to merge this is as one thing, and not starting talking about all the channels, but start talking about retailing.
Yeah. I get
As I
it.
see it.
I get it. It's not disconnected. It's more and more connected. And if you want to survive in this game, you need to be more and more connected.
Yes.
All right, because that makes sense. And I think that's a game changer for a lot of companies, I guess. It has to be, because that's not what I experience when I go into my everyday shopping. That's not what I experience. So it must be a game changer for some of the companies that.
It most likely is. It shouldn't be, because it's not. It's never really. It's not different from the way it's always been. Retail has always evolved. It's always evolved from, you had a single brand or a single store that dealt this in some town. Now there's another store coming. Now there's 2 other stores.
Yeah.
Now you have 4 supermarkets instead of 1.
Yeah.
How does that change? It's no different. If they're in your supermarket and they're ready to buy, make sure that they get what they need, or they're going to go to the others. The others, in this sense, are just the digital world.
Yeah.
They'll go there.
Yeah.
So it hasn't really changed. But I think the requirements of the people who run it, who plan it, who strategize, who execute, has changed.
Okay.
I think the organization part and the understanding of that is a huge factor, because that's changed tremendously.
Okay.
And I also think that understanding point, that is the thing about retail, right? We see a lot of people sitting on the top don't know anything about physical retail. And you come on, it is like if you did a homepage, right, and you did your website blue, I want to change it to green. You can easily do it, right? But if you have painted your store blue, and now you want to change it to green,
it's the 50 stores you have across country.
Exactly. Or even if you have people involved that have to be have to be present to your fans or your guests that are coming into the store, those guys have to be involved in this, and it takes time. So you have to be aware of this. It's a long process. It's not something you just do overnight. You can do that with your website. So you have to understand the physical retail. You have to combine all the best things from all those channels we're talking about, and then use them.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Speaking about change, I think that it's something that I, on one hand, don't want to talk about. On the other hand, I think we have to. Corona crisis, lockdown, everything. Did we as humans move? Did we change our habits? More people are buying online. Is now the time to close down shops and say, okay, now it's just online, no more shops? Scale down, people will buy online, or what has changed in people's mind? Are we more concerned about something else?
I think it just reflects that people still want to buy the brands. People still want to buy the products. It's not that there's a reluctance to go shopping. They just don't have the opportunity to do it physically. And again, that's why you need to have digital channels be part of your retail strategy as well. Because if you're not able to get to the store, if you don't have retailers near a certain city, well, where are the people in that city going to buy your products? Well, they're going to buy it online. So it's taking ownership of that whole journey. But it's also about thinking about this in a defensive way, meaning that if you don't take control of your brand and making sure that people can reach it at any given time, they will reach somebody else. So if I'm living in a city and I can't get a certain product, I'm going to go online and buy it if I want to buy this product. Yeah. If you don't sell it, well, then I'm going to buy the next best thing, which is going to be a competitive product.
Do you think that all of this caring about my family and health and friends and how we're doing as a society right now has made me focus even more maybe on the local part of it? Or is that the same? I mean, buying from Amazon or from Hi-Fi Club, I don't care where I can get the cheapest products. Do you think that has changed a bit now?
I don't think it's changed because of COVID-19. I think it's a change that's been coming. We had stores closing all over in High Street for years, having empty retail spaces, cities dying out because people don't visit it. And why is that? Well, because they don't get that extra value out of going to physical retail. You know, and that's the problem. If I don't give them that experience that will have them coming back, that persuades them that it's worth to go to a physical space, they're going to buy it online.
And I think we have another thing here. Maybe I want this cut out, but maybe it starts all the way up with the politics, right? What is it that we want with this city we have?
Yeah.
What we see right now is if you take the main street of Copenhagen, where you don't have any, you know, really funky, cool stores you want to visit, you know, you're getting a lot of criminals, you're getting a lot of souvenirs and all kind of stuff there, and you get a lot of people being not happy about walking around there. So retail is doing more than just selling products, right? It's a whole experience of visiting that city, and I guess everybody pretty much have the same thing as I have, that if you go to the main street of the big cities, right, you're seeing the same stores.
Yeah,
you're getting the same experience.
Yes.
So we have to divide. I mean, we have to do some difference. We have to start focusing on Copenhagen. What is that the Copenhagen wants to be a part of? And you know, what is it that we want to show? What is it that we want to give to them? So we have to, even if the cities have to work together, we have, as the brands have to work together, you know, to yell up to them and say, hey, you need to help us here. It's not about just opening a new retail store. That's fine, because if I'm opening one store on a street where I can fit like 100 stores, and I'm the only one that's interested, I mean, I have a big problem because people are not coming.
No.
So we need to, you know, we need to stay together and, you know, get together, even in the organization, but even in the cities and maybe even in the country.
Yeah.
And by that, yes, we have to focus locally, and we have to be more locally. And you know, we have been saying, think globally, act locally. But I think locally right now and act locally is very, very important, because we need to get interesting again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
I believe actually that it's much easier now to think and act locally after COVID-19, because it's the nearest things to me that are important.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, Christian. I think it has been important for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
It just gave us a wake-up call with the COVID-19, right?
You might right, yes.
Yeah.
Because why haven't we been doing this? And, you know, we're still buying, crap from the internet that has just been shipped away, and we were like, oh, if it's not working, I'm just throwing it out because it's only 39 kroner or whatever. You know, that thinking we need to get over with, because why if you could go and try it and you can still buy it for 39? I mean, if it's giving you a good experience, and I just want to hold on to just a good experience here, because I was working with cheese, and I can't say what brand here, but I was working with cheese, and cheese is not a really, really sexy thing to buy. It's probably not, because everybody's buying on price, right? So how can you give an experience to that? First of all, to take it out of the natural place where it's standing, right? That the cheese is sitting there in the cooler, and it's always sitting there and sitting together with the other one. Which one is 39? Which one is 41? Where I'm getting the best price, right? What about if you can take it away from that shelf and then take it out, and you can start focusing on, I want to give the best experience with my cheese. Not that it's the best cheese, but I want to give the best experiences, or what's around it is the most important part. And we took this cheese product and we took it out of the store, and we built it up a cheese wagon with a very cool cheese guy standing in the wagon, and we suddenly start selling on average price 82. I mean, 82 kroner average price, compared to the store that was 39.
Really?
It's the same cheese.
Okay.
And taking that.
You took it in a cheese van outside,
Yes.
or okay?
Yes, just bringing it out in another atmosphere, giving another experience, even giving some experts on it, and even changing them from. I'm usually, going with the mellemlært in Danish. Then if you could say, you want to try a little bit, a little bit more tasteful. Yeah, actually, could I? Yes, you can. You should try this one. And then you're moving them actually as guests, or I like to call them fans.
Yeah.
Because I want to treat them as fans.
Yeah.
So if you bring an experience to your product and don't focus on, I need to make it better and better and better, high quality, because that's a hygiene factor at the moment. It's about what experience can you give me? And can you give me more knowledge? Can you make me socialize with you? Can you have me taste it? Can you have me feel it? Blah, 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 all that. Put that in.
It sounds like experience is going to be a big part of this conversation, definitely, and retail needs to be an experience. Is there anything you need to do on a more local scale in order to have that traction towards your brand? Like, I mean, it's probably, I know Dali Danish company, how do they do? What do they do in Germany? What do they do in Austria? Are there any are there any local presence? Do they support the local communities? Are there anything that needs to be done, or is it just like?
Well, I mean, I agree that you have to have a local presence. You have to be part of the community, and that's going very old school, right?
Yeah.
You know, you have the old general store, the hardware store, and that's where everybody meets. You have to have a local anchor, or an anchor with your local community. And I think that's going to be something that we're going to see more of in the future. We're still going to have the global brands. We're going to still have the big flagship stores and all that. But I think there's going to be an influx of experiences where they're anchored in the local community rather than just anchored on price and availability. So I think the cheese example is a good example, because if you go out with a wagon, you're not going to have the same wide selection. No, but you give an experience, and you give the sense, as we were talking about in the beginning, you have trained salespeople. You have the opportunity to experience the product, and you have an experience in that this is different. It's surprising. It's something more or less unique. But you also get the sense of authenticity, and that it's the local cheese man, cheese vendor, right? And I think that's something we're going to see more in retail. Is you have global brands, but they're going to be slightly differentiated in the terms of how do they interact with the local communities. Yeah. I think Lego is a good example. If you go to their flagship stores, they're more or less the same. But if you go to the one in London, it's going to have London landmarks built, and that's going to be part of the experience. Yes. If you go to Shanghai, it's going to have Shanghai experiences. So depending on where you actually go, there's that local connection still that differentiates the store instead of one size fits all.
So it's still adding complexity, right? Because you have shop in shops, but you need to have it sounds like it's a separate marketing channel almost to have that specific local anchor.
I don't think it adds complexity.
No?
It challenges you when you strategize, and it challenges you in terms of executing. But it doesn't necessarily add complexity, because it's not at the core. It's the icing on the cake that differentiates you.
It's how you execute.
You can have a. Now we're talking about cakes, but you can have a chocolate cake that I made. It doesn't look fantastic. It might taste good, but it doesn't look great. Or you can have something that a professional made with all the icing and everything. It's the icing on the cake that gives the experience. So whether it's 80-20, whether it's 90-10, there's going to be a split on what's standardized, what's part of my traditional strategy, my traditional retail experience, and then what is that extra thing that I add that people will remember. That was that extra thing that people experienced and that they're going to take home and say, yeah, that was not out of the ordinary. Because the products are the same as I can buy in many different places.
True.
And when you're there, I mean, it all comes down to being present. Right? Yep. If you open a store, be present in that city, be present in that country, be present as people that are working there. As a person, be involved. And, you know, it's not a problem to get young people to be involved. You know, they hate wasting time. And they're not just sitting down and say, I have to make money. I think they're focusing on that first paycheck they're getting. But then it starts being, okay, I like being here. I like working here. I'm getting something from this, right? So if you start focusing on that being present all the way through the organization and in the city and in the country and wherever it brings us out, I think it comes down to those simple things. And sometimes the hardest part is to get the complex simple. Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to do today. I'll try to make a very similar thing. Yeah. I'm saying a lot of words, but I'm trying to keep it as the same words, right? Yeah. So socialize and be present.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, be present. I think that the present thing is that holds kind of everything we're talking about here.
And I completely agree, and that's also why I was a little bit disagreeing with you. I don't think it necessarily adds complexity.
No.
It's just a different way of thinking and a different way of addressing the problem, the challenges in front of you.
Yeah. But I can easily see that from the talks that we have now and my own experience, I know this journey it's a bit complex to do. You have to think it all the way through from the top. And if you don't have that buy-in from all of the organization, I think that's important as well. Yeah. It will eventually make it difficult to execute.
Yes.
Definitely. Good point. Yes. I actually have, when people were signing up for this, some were great at asking questions. So I got a couple for you guys. Andreas is asking, and we didn't talk much about it, do you think that digital and physically physical marketing or stores, retail, whatever you would like to call it? Do you think that's going to merge even more together? Will we see more shops where you can buy digitally but experience the product, or what does that look like?
I can just start it up, and I guess you can even talk more about it. But one thing I think that is very important on this one is that I talked to a guy yesterday that was more clever than me, and what he said is that, well, be aware of one thing: if you have a store, right, start using those extension you can get being locally, or having an address as a store. You can start targeting locally. You can start using Google Business that you're here, and it's getting important. And so I think all the digital channels, they are also getting on. Okay, how can we get this more locally? How can we get this more personalized? How can we even bring it more closer to the target group? So I think with having a physical store, start using all those things around us instead of seeing internet as a problem. See it as a gain.
Yeah,
I think it's about relevance. Will there be a bigger merge between physical and digital? Will you see more digital in stores? I think yes, you will, simply because that's the way society is moving. But it's about relevance. It's not about serving up digital experiences just because we can.
No, not
it's
anymore.
about adding value to what the consumer is looking for.
Yeah.
It's about a good example is something we're doing at Dali, where we have our retail concepts are very scalable, and we work from the situation where we have customers that are very different from each other. We have Hi-Fi Klubben, which is one type of chain store. We have independent retailers that are very small, and you have 50 speakers standing next to each other, and you can't see which brand is what. And how do you differentiate that? So it's about adding relevance to the experience. And one of the things that we've done for our recently launched headphones, for instance, is that we've brought in VR technology.
Yeah.
And creating something that takes up maybe half the size of this table, but it's a stand. And you can say, well, it's gimmicky. Well, it depends on what you do with it. So where we started out testing, and because if you want to make these changes, you have to be willing to test. You have to be willing to fail and do it over and learn. And it's an iterative process. But what we did was, well, we had one type of content and it was maybe less engaging. We then switched and said, well, we're working from the assumption that this is the right way to go, but the content is wrong.
Okay.
So we're actually recording concerts in VR. So what we're able to give the customer from experience when they try our headphones is that we can immerse them completely in our brand and in our product, because we take away their hearing from outside. We take away their senses. Well, we don't take them away. We center them on us.
I think you're amplifying them.
We center them on us.
Yeah.
But the content we then serve to them is an immersive experience because they're part of this concert. They're standing among the concert goers, the audience, just as we're standing next to each other here, and they feel like they're part of a concert. So all of a sudden, there's a relevance, because why are they buying the product? Well, to listen to music. Yep. We're giving them music. Why are they, for various things? So I think it's about creating an immersive experience that's relevant. Yep. At the time. Yeah. It's not about bringing in technology or digital just because we can, or because it's cool, or we think that's what the consumer wants. Yeah. It's bring it in if it amplifies your message, if it enhances your product, if it lifts your communication and lifts the product experience, then bring it in.
And that means, to answer this specific question, what you're saying is that stop focusing on whether it's digital or not digital, focusing on the experiences, the senses, and that user journey, or it sounds like a fancy word, but the experiences the user will have on their journey into a purchase.
Exactly.
Can I close that one? Because I think actually focusing on what you're selling, what is it actually you're selling? Because I'm asking that question out in corporate companies now, and even big brands. People will say different things in all the organization. So make it all merge in your organization and start figuring out what is it that you're selling. Yeah. Secondly, what do you want to make your fans feel? What is it? What is it, and how do you do it? And I can help you on how to do it. But if you start focusing on these two things, I think you're really, really getting far, because then it's not digital or physical store that it's in your way. You're focusing on something different, and then you can start working on those channels if you need those. If you need a physical store, if you need a digital store, it depends on what you're selling and what you want to make them feel.
Yeah, there's some strategic work that needs to be done in front of all that.
Yes.
Got it. All right, we have a couple of questions though, so I'm going to jump into the next one. I think Reidar and Andre is asking, most people buy their furniture in traditional furniture stores, but more and more web shops are popping up. What's the trend regarding furniture and web shops? It's a very concrete question.
I think you have, first of all, it depends on what type of furniture you're selling.
Let's say beds and sofas and stuff.
Yeah, but again, it depends on price point. It depends on what your brand is, and so forth. But we definitely see a trend in the furniture industry that increasingly online channels are taking over some of the business. Amazon is one, but actually a bigger player is Wayfair. So Wayfair is the furniture equivalent to Amazon, an American company. But is it the right place for me to go? Well, maybe, maybe not. But you do see an increasing competition from digital channels. And why do we do that? Well, because the furniture store hasn't changed in the past 40 years, if maybe even longer. The furniture is standing there and you can look at it, and then, you know, people go in and they're selling products. Well, you can also get it in green, or you can get it with this fabric, or you can get it with this. That's great, but how is this going to be better at solving my problem with my space at home?
And you can have it in 6 months.
And you can have it in 6 months. No, but I mean, how do, you know, again, we're back to educating the sales staff. We're back to figuring out what it is we're selling. Are we selling furniture, or are we selling home experiences? Are we selling comfort at home?
And you know, and comes down to inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're not inspiring me, and now I'm sorry, I've been to a lot of furniture stores, and I'm not getting that much inspired.
No.
I'm getting by, and I don't want to say any brands here or anything, but I think you can do more.
Yeah.
And if you start inspiring me, because nobody, I mean, why is Pinterest so overfloated with people saving and doing and blah blah blah? Because they're getting inspired, right?
Yeah.
So start inspiring me.
Yeah.
You're not inspiring me. You're doing the same thing, and you're even being worse than Pinterest. Why should I go to your store?
Yeah.
So,
But bottom line is, yes, there's going to be an increase in amount of furniture sold online.
Yeah.
And physical retail is increasingly going to be challenged by it, because they just don't have the ability to have the same assortment shown to the customer in the same way as they do in the physical space.
Yeah.
In digital, you know, they can show the products in the same way, and there's no end to how many products they can. But it's, again, you're focusing too much on, or you risk focusing too much on, is it physical or is it digital? It doesn't really matter, because it's about the full experience.
Yeah.
I recently had an experience with a major furniture brand, and I'm not going to mention the brand name, but I had a question. I was on their website, I had a question, and I called up their customer support. It said customer support, and I waited, and nobody answered the phone. Like, all right, I did it a couple of times, nobody answered. So I looked on and said, all right, I'll use the chatbot.
the internet.
I sent on their website a message to the chatbot. I think an hour went by, and then somebody answered me. And it's like, all right, I got an answer. So I had a follow-up question to their answer to expand on it. Never got an answer.
Okay.
So why have a chatbot if it's not automated? Why do you have a chatbot if it's not linked to a FAQ, if it's not automated, if it's just a way to go into the physical support center where people will answer you manually?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the purpose?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
you're not utilizing technology the way that it was intended, to the extent that it's actually able to lift your business.
So you can easily have bad experiences as well digitally. It doesn't have to be physically to have a bad
Completely.
experience.
Maybe because you have too many touch points.
Yeah.
And you have fewer people to work for you. I mean, it's hard for you to be on everyone, right?
Or the organization has silos, so maybe the organization is
silos,
endeared towards having a chatbot because you forgot, maybe it was the marketing department that set up the chatbot, but you forgot to talk to the support department about, do they actually have the people to support it?
Yeah.
You know?
And look at it this way, and I want to close this one. Look at it if you had the online store sitting on the first floor on your physical store.
Yeah.
All the people there and the people that are working there, what if they were working all together? What if I could just go upstairs and say, do we have this online? Because
Is this available online?
I even brought Joey here, and he's asking for this one in yellow. Is it possible to get? Yes, we have it in Poland. Okay, it's not a matter if we're sold out or not sold out. When can you have it? You can have it in 5 days. Okay, I'll get it for you.
Yeah.
Joey, how's that? And he will have the best experience. And this was nothing about giving him something or discount or
True,
anything.
true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
definitely.
how can we like?
And I think those are a couple of keywords, and not to expand more on it, but I think a lot of times retailers, I wouldn't say cop out, but they see the solution and, well, then let's give them a discount. let's give them a voucher.
Yeah.
Well, all you're doing is cutting into your margin. All you're doing is diminishing your business. You know, and a lot of times it's not the right solution, because what we see from digital space is people don't necessarily buy only because of price. What we see from Amazon is they buy because they trust a brand and they get a good experience or whatever. So don't just look at, well, let's give a discount. No. Instead of giving that discount of whatever percentage, invest that percentage instead in increasing the experience.
Yeah.
Because it'll differentiate you.
All right. We have a couple more questions, so I'm gonna jump into those as well. Marwan is asking, in shops like this, we can easily see it now. We have different brands here. How do you make sure that the manufacturers are close enough to the end users? It sums up a lot of what we've talked about, but do you have an easy solution to that?
You're in that game.
Easy.
Definitely in that game.
Shouldn't have said easy. Is that a sum of everything that we've talked about?
I think it is, because, you know, getting closer to the consumer, when and where. What situation we're talking about? Where is it you want to be closer?
It's a brand building thing, maybe.
It's a brand building thing, because is it you want to be close in the research phase, the interest phase? Go on social. Make sure your website is great, and maybe have some sort of interactive live experience. It may be a chatbot, maybe whatever. Is it at the moment of truth? How are you closer to the customer in the physical retail, or how are you closer to the customer on a web shop? Well, there are different ways of doing it. If you're on a web shop, if you have online e-commerce, well, do you have the opportunity to live chat during your purchasing process on your website?
Yeah.
Are you able to have that? Well, that'll bring you closer to the customer.
Yeah. Okay.
For one way, but it depends on when and where.
And the last thing is that work together. Now, not only, you know, in the organization, work together with your wholesaler, work together with your, listen to what your fans are saying at the wholesaler stores, etc., etc., etc. So listen all the way. And
that leads me to the next question, which comes from Quadrat. I'm just going to read it up. They've been asking during the show, so I'm just going to read it up to you. As a B2B brand, we are highly dependent on our retailers' motivation to offer us, instead of competitors' product, private consumer walking into the stores. Does that make sense? Even just a second. We are highly dependent on retailers' motivation to offer private walking into the store. We still feel that educating training sales staff is super important. However, we are struggling to... All right, yeah, okay, I get it. So the question here is, of course, we talked about educating staff. We talked about educating the stores and making sure that everybody's on board that journey and the mission we're on. How do you motivate them? How do you motivate the staff? How do you make sure that it comes all the way through to the staff and their knowledge? Experiences?
Yes. But it is a hard thing, because what happens when you come to the wholesaler part, from my point of view, right, you're losing a little bit of control of your brand.
Yes.
And it's so hard, because you're not in control anymore. And if you're not in control anymore, how should you be able to motivate in the ways you have decided?
Yeah.
So I think, again, I would take a word here, and it's really, really important, but it also you have to invest in this one, because you have to be more present. The more present you are, the more they have focus on you, the more focus they have on you, the more interested they will be in learning about your brand or product, whatever you're moving it from. So I think if you're giving it the much attention as you can, I think the staff,
okay,
yes.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, come on, those guys are the most, or girls, or whatever they're called today. Those people are the most important assets in the whole, as I see it, in the whole customer journey, right? Because those guys are your ambassador. They're in real life. Come on. This is not influencers or anything sitting on their website or blah, 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 but you're saying something. You're getting the real stuff. So, you know, give them something they can tell about and give them some storytelling, right? Give them something they can do about the storytelling. And to let them be the story, you have to be more as a brand present and give it and teaching them and blah, blah, blah. And I have seen this, and I've seen it, and it works.
So you're talking about more... It doesn't have to be like a bonus you get for knowing what you're supposed to know. You need to talk to the emotions, even with the staff.
Well, let me take it another way. Just to give another perspective, is that I have heard about retailers that they have it like, well, I'm going on visiting my stores. What? Are you going visiting your stores? That should be where you are every day.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, come on, you should be present. You should be there all the time. You should be motivating. You should be the leader of your retailing. And we're putting it up as small touch point. We visit them once a month. The rest of the time we're sitting doing strategic work. Come on.
Yeah.
But you should. You know, Kvadrat is the questions from Kvadrat Textiles, right? So, onboard field service merchandisers whose only job is go into the stores every single day, making sure that the products are represented, that they're present, that it looks good, educate the people in there,
Give
make
them
sure you
something to talk about.
sales
Give them something
training,
to talk about.
product training, make sure that you embrace them, make them feel that they are appreciated.
Yeah.
But also, my experience from the furniture industry, having worked there a number of different times, is that when it comes to textiles, rarely are those textiles out in front. So is this available in different fabric? Yeah, it is. And then they open up a cabinet and it's, a big whole bunch of different textiles in there. And then you have some from Gabriel, you have some from Kvadrat, and you have from all these different textile brands.
Yeah.
How is Kvadrat different in the experience?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the consumer experience here. I'm talking about the experience of working with Kvadrat as a salesperson, as a retailer. Why should I choose Kvadrat every single time that I need to pick an alternative textile? That's what they need to get to. So and one thing is making sure that the product is in store, that it's shown in an interesting and inviting way, and then hire field service merchandisers to actually go out every single day and train your staff.
And tell me where I'm getting expired, and then wherever I want to buy it, you should be present.
Yeah.
If it's online, if it's physical, if it's a wholesale store, if it's I don't know, wherever you can buy in a vending machine, maybe that's the new thing. You should be present there, and then you should be able to have some places where you're showrooming, and people wanna drive for showrooming if it's the right experience.
And I think that the whole fabric thing, when you open up a box, a cabinet, or whatever with it, that sounds like you haven't dedicated the right resources for that specific job.
People don't. The salespeople or the retailer doesn't see a difference between the different brands, so they just stuff them all in the back.
Take this seriously and dedicate resources.
Yeah.
One final question, I think. We talked a lot about experiences physically. How do you have any experience on how to take these physically experiences where you touch emotions and have senses and everything else online? Digital experiences.
Well, I think, and it's sometimes people say it's always easier because they're big companies that have lots of money, but that's not necessarily so. It's not about money. But I think one company that does it extremely well is Lego.
Yep.
It's taking them a long time to get there, but you have, and it helps that you have a very tactile product. You have a product that invites to being physical with it. But if you see their physical presence in the stores, it stands out. They have scaled their in-store presence, their retail concepts. If you're a small store, you have this type. If you're a supermarket, you have this type. If you're a flagship store or shop and shop, you have different experiences. So they tailor the experience to the retail space that they're trying to occupy. So that's one thing. You get the same experience across the different channels. So regardless if you're on social media, you're on your website, it's the same message, it's the same experience that you get. So it's about saying, let's simplify this and not give 50 different experiences, but let's make sure that you have one coherent experience that goes across all our channels. This is what Lego does extremely well. I mean, they're one of the true strengths is that they're one of the few websites where parents will let their kids go on the website and let them explore it without looking at them, do it on their own,
that's right,
without
that's right,
observation.
that's right.
Otherwise, because they know. Lego has earned that trust that they know they're not going to get into trouble on Lego's website. Yeah. So regardless of where you are, make that, make sure that people understand that message and give them that experience across the different channels.
I was, if I can add to that, I was just thinking of it was actually a solution that we made is where you put, let's take a couch, sofa, you have different kinds of fabric for your configurator, and then you can take it into an augmented reality thing, real size. You can put it in a corner, see how it fits, and you can move it around. I think that's prolonging the experience that you have digitally, because usually you just have, I wanted this color, and yes, it says Kvadrat, but I can't see it. I can't see how the light is falling and stuff like that. I think that's one of the ways where you digitally can further that experience, because I'm working with my senses, my eyes, and I'm walking around, and stuff like that.
So and that's a fun example, because it's something that we're talking about now, and it's still not fully adopted, because we're talking about configurators. We're talking about PIM systems that needs to serve up the products regardless of which variation or which model and which textile you choose and so forth. But it's actually, I think the first time I saw that solution was back in 2004 or 5 when Bolia did it with their app. And I think that was the first time I saw AR actually being made or used in a sensible way. And today, even today, we're still looking at, wow, it's something that most brands aren't even doing. Maybe it's because it's not relevant to them. That's fine. I'm not going to be judging that. But it's interesting to see if you have a good experience that it can last for a very, very long time.
True.
If you should find anything good in COVID-19, it should also be that, well, when we experience, we want to have it as human as possible, right? So maybe we should learn from somebody else doing this. You know, Faroe Island, you couldn't visit the island, right? So they made a digital guide you could log into and be that guide and follow that guide around.
Right, that's right.
That's an example on how can we humanize as much as we can digital, because what we're trying to do is to make it human, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. I just want to come up with another thing was that it went away.
It went away.
But the point was that think about the human way. How can you make that digitalized, even in a good experience? And people are not stupid. They know that it's not human. But can you get us? I mean, can you make them feel something?
Yeah.
Not just see and hear,
but
make it a little bit more deeper. And I would tell you all that's a big experiential process. And I would take you on that journey another day. But it's about how deep do you want to go with that providers you're providing your communication or your advertising or your product with. It depends on that. And the big thing here is also focusing. You cannot be on all the chatbots. You cannot be having 500 numbers you have to pick up because you don't have the staff for it. So you have to focus.
I get it. And guys, we're running out of time. There's actually one more question. I think we'll get back to that in the after notes. Thank you all for listening in. Really appreciate a lot of you stayed so far. Hopefully you get something out of it. We'll be sending out the show notes. We would like some feedback as well on a concept like this. We've done it a couple of times. I think I like the concept. It feels like you guys are getting warm and on fire as well.
We're warm now.
Go on forever.
So what we need to hear is from you guys. What do you think about this? Anyway, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.